Miss T, and today we are going to be doing a short lesson on the simple past tense. There was an overview of all of the simple tenses, but this looks at the simple past tense by itself in more detail. So we are going to talk about what it is, when we use it, why we use it. So the past tense, this is a very common tense in English. It is used to talk about actions in the past. More specifically, it's used to talk about actions that have started and finished in the past. And we don't use this tense to talk about continuous actions. Just so you know, a continuous action is a long action that continues to be happening. The structure that we're going to look at, there are three different structures that we'll look at today. This is the first one. So the structure. The present simple tense follows this structure. We have SVO. We've looked at this before. S means subject, V means main verb, and O is the object of the sentence. Just like we've already been over previously, it's just a reminder, the subject is the person or thing that is doing an action. The action is the verb. And then the object is the person or thing that the action is being done to. So that is the different parts of a sentence. Let's have a look at some examples. I walked to school. He cooked dinner. We watched movies. She played the guitar. So in all these cases, we start with the subject. I is the subject. The main verb is walked. Into school is the object. He cooked dinner. He is the subject. Cook is the verb. And dinner is the object. We watched movies. We is the subject. Watched is the verb. Movies is the object. She played the guitar. She is the subject. Played is the verb. And the guitar is the object. So this is the structure. Now we can see the structure is actually the same as the simple present tense, but the biggest difference is in the main verb. So the verb is what tends to change when we're talking about tense, which tells us about time. We know that we're talking about the past. So our verb has always changed. Now, in the present simple tense, we often looked at the base form of the verb, the V1 form. Now, this time we're going to be looking at the V2 form. And in the V2 form, we have ED at the end of all of our verbs. So that is something new for the simple past tense. So the structure explained. Just like I told you, the subject, which is S, is the person or thing doing the action. V is the verb. The verb is the action. O is object. The object is the person or thing the action is being done to. Now, we're going to talk a little bit more about the form of the verbs. So when we use the simple past tense, we know that the verbs change their form. So for regular verbs, we always add ed on the end of the verb. But if the verb already ends with e, then we just have to add d on the end. Irregular verbs are more difficult because when you change an irregular verb to the past tense, it always looks different. We call this form V2. So whenever we add ed or just d, or it looks totally different, no matter what we call it, V2. And that is the simple past tense of the form of the verb. So V2 just means it's in its simple past form. Now, if we're looking at the differences, when do I add ed? When do I add d? When is it irregular? This is a little bit more tricky. So we saw the example, I cooked dinner. So this is a simple present, I cooked dinner. This ends with a K. That's our last letter here. Because it ends with a K, we have to add E and D. Like that. I cooked dinner. So that's when we add ed. But sometimes a verb might already end in E. For example, I can say, I value our time, for example. And so you might say, I valued our time. And because the word value ends in E already, I only need to add D here. I valued our time. And so that's the difference here. And irregular verbs. So a really common example of an irregular verb is go. So in this simple present, you can say, I go to school, for example. Now, in these irregular verbs, the verb takes completely different form, and it's different all the time. So it must be memorized. Doesn't have a rule like this, or like add the ed or add the d. It's more complicated. So if you're going to change this to simple past, the V2 form looks like this. I went to school. So it's irregular, which means that we're not going to follow the rule. The rule would be add ed, I goed. We don't say this. This is not correct because go is irregular. We have to say, I went to school. Went is the V2 form of go. And irregular verbs are very, very tricky for this reason. In one of my future videos, I will give you a list of the most common irregular verbs that you can memorize and practice, because there is a lot of common ones in English. You probably already know a lot of them. So let's talk a little bit more about the form of the verbs. Unlike present simple tense, the subject will not impact the form of the regular main verb. We will always add ed or d. So what do I mean by that? Do you remember how when we were doing simple present tense, I could say I cook dinner, or I think about the third person singular, he cooks dinner. And so we had to always think about the subject. Now it's not that important. Now for the simple past tense, we can say, I cooked dinner. And even with a subject like he, she, or it, doesn't matter. We still add ed. He cooked dinner, like that. So that's what I mean, that the subject will not impact the form of the regular main verb. However, when we're using the form of be, it's a little bit different. So let's talk about that, because in that case, the subject does impact it a little bit. So let's look at this structure. The past simple tense can follow this structure: subject plus the form of be, and then the adjective. So subject, we've already talked about, is the thing doing the action. And in this case, be is our verb, our action, but it's an auxiliary verb. So in case we don't remember from our other lessons, auxiliary verbs are also known as helping verbs. Sometimes they support the main verbs and they provide information about the tense. And so when we're using be in a sentence, we have different forms. And when we use it in simple past tense, it depends on the subject here. So if we have a singular subject, we use the word was. But if we have a plural subject, we use the word were. And so this changes in the simple past tense. We can either have was or were. Let's look at these examples. I was happy. Now, in this case, I is singular. It's just one person. So we're going to say was. I was happy. He was kind. Again, this is singular, even though it's third person or first person, doesn't matter. No matter what, singular, singular. So was. Now, we is more than one person, could be 2 people, 3 people, 4 people. So we're going to use the plural form of be in the past form. So that's were. And she was excited. So in this case, this is singular, so we're using was. They were tired. And in this case, we're using were because they is more than one person. It's plural. So that's the difference here. All of these words, happy, kind, bored, excited, tired, these are adjectives. In other words, these are describing words. So let's look at the meaning a little bit more closely for all of these. The last word in every sentence is an adjective, and in this case, most of them are feelings. So happy is a feeling. Bored is a feeling. Excited is a feeling. And tired is a feeling. So these are all feelings. And so when we put this form of be before the adjective or before the feeling, it means that the subject had this feeling in the past, but the subject doesn't feel this way anymore. So I was happy sometime in the past, but now I'm not happy anymore. We were bored sometime in the past, but we are not bored anymore. She was excited sometime in the past before now, but we're not excited, or she's not excited anymore. They were tired. They were feeling tired in the past, but they are not tired anymore. So that's what this means. And so let's look at another structure. The past simple tense can follow the structure. It can be subject plus be plus a noun. So subject could, of course, be he, she, it, I, you, we, they, something like that. Or it can be any noun, the teacher, the girl, the boy, the class. Be here is the auxiliary verb in past form. So we're going to use was or were again. So that's what this means, remember, in past form. So that means can be was for singular or were. And then over here, we're going to have a noun. And this noun resembles a profession, like a job, or a type of person, a child or a student or a senior. Let's look at these sentences are going to come over here. So I was a teacher. So we're following this. The last word in this sentence is a noun. And the noun represents jobs, which are also occupations or stages in life. These are stages in life. And so that's what these words mean. When we put the form of be in the past form, was or were, before these words, it means the subject used to be in this occupation or stage of life, but the subject is not in that occupation or stage of life anymore. So if I say, I was a teacher, it means in the past, that was my job, a teacher. But now I am not a teacher anymore. We say he was a doctor. This means in the past, he was a doctor, but now he is not a doctor anymore. Maybe he is retired. Maybe he found a new job. Who knows? We were students. This is common. Many people say this, especially in a group, because it means that we were students in the past. We went to school in the past, but we are not students anymore. Maybe we completed our school and moved on, we graduated, and now we are no longer students. You can say she was a teenager. This is another thing that we can commonly say. You were a teenager when you were 13 years old, 14 years old, all the way to 18 years old. And then after that, you became an adult. At least in Canada, we consider adults age 18 and over. And so after that, you're not a teenager anymore. So before, in the past, you were a teenager, but now you're not anymore. Same thing. They were children. This is a plural form because we're using they. But if it's singular, you can say she was a child. Anyways, no matter what you say, it means that you were at this stage of life in the past, but you are not in that stage of life anymore. So we're going to talk about time words here. Time words tell us more information about when an activity happened in the past. Common time words are yesterday, last night, last week, last year, or in some kind of year. So you can say in 2011. Here's some examples to make it more clear. He played soccer yesterday. The time word is yesterday. And we are in simple past form to show that. I watched a movie last night. Watched is in simple past, and this is our time word, last night. They walked to school last week. Walked is in our simple past form, and last week is our time word. We studied history last year. Studied is in the past simple form, and last year is our time word. I attended university in 2016. Attended is in the simple past form. And here is our time word in 2016. Now I'm going to bring your attention up to this word here, studied. Whenever we have a verb that ends in a Y, so study is the base form of the word and it ends in Y. When we have to put that in past form, we actually remove the Y and replace it with I and then add ED. Study, and we make it simple past by adding no Y, IED. So we have to change that, and that's true for all words that end in Y. There's some exceptions, but really not many. So don't worry about that until you're at a more advanced level. Okay, so here's a bit of a summary. Simple past tense is used to talk about actions that were completed sometime in the past, the structures that we use. Subject plus main verb, which is a simple past form, other words, V2, plus the object, or subject plus the form of be in the past, such as was or were, plus an adjective, or the subject plus be in the past form, such as was or were, plus a, and, or the, plus a noun. Now, we're going to fill in the blanks with the correct verb form. We're going to do a little quiz before we finish up to see how much you can remember. So we're going to fill in the blanks with the correct verb form. Let's start. So we have I as the subject. Live is the base form of the verb. In Victoria last year, that's our time word there. So we have to change the verb to the correct form. So how do we change this? How do we make it into V2 form, or what do we do with this word? What do you think? Here is the correct form. I lived in Victoria last year. So for this, we only had to add D because the base form ends in E. So we just needed to add D at the end. I lived in Victoria last year. That's great. Let's look at this one. I something hungry. I'm not hungry anymore. So now we know here is the form of be because we have an adjective. Hungry is our adjective. So we have subject. We need the form of be plus adjective. What form of be should we take? Remember, it's singular. The subject is singular. So what form of be in the past form is appropriate or best for the singular subject? Was. I was hungry. I'm not hungry anymore. So that's what we can say there. Last one. They something sad yesterday. Now they are happy. So what form of be should we take here? So we have they, which is plural. We have an adjective sad, but we are missing the form of be. So we need the past form of be for plural. What could that be? What is that? They were sad yesterday. Now they are happy. So were is the correct form of be and the past form for the plural they. So how did you do? I hope you did well. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope the simple past tense is a little bit more clear for you. Please like and subscribe if you did enjoy this, and there will be more grammar videos to come. Keep on doing the best you can, and I'll see you next time. Bye.